I still remember the first time I realized that English was not just a language for me. It was a wall. A wall between my dreams and my reality. My name is Sarah, and this is not a story of success at the beginning. It is a story of fear, silence, embarrassment, and slow courage. I grew up in a small town where everyone spoke the same language. At home, in school, in the streets, everything felt familiar. I was confident when I spoke in my own language. People listened to me. I could express my thoughts clearly. I never felt small. But everything changed when English entered my life seriously. English was taught in school, but it was never alive. It was only words written on a blackboard. We memorized grammar rules, essays, and vocabulary lists. I could pass exams, but I could not speak. I could read slowly, but I could not understand real conversations. At that time, I did not know that one day English would decide my confidence, my future, and even my identity. When I entered college, English became unavoidable. Books were in English. Teachers spoke English. Class discussions were in English. Suddenly, the classroom felt like a place where I did not belong. I started sitting in the back. I avoided eye contact. I prayed that no one would ask me a question. The first time a teacher asked me to introduce myself in English, my heart started beating fast. My hands were shaking. My mind went blank. I knew the words, but they refused to come out. When I finally spoke, my voice was low and broken. Some students smiled politely. Others looked bored. A few laughed quietly. That moment stayed with me for years. After that day, I decided that silence was safer. I stopped trying. I wrote well, but I did not speak. Teachers thought I was shy. Classmates thought I was weak. Inside, I felt angry at myself. I wanted to speak. I wanted to be confident. But fear always won. At home, I would open my English books and stare at the pages. The sentences looked perfect, but they felt distant. I could not imagine myself speaking like that. I compared myself to others who spoke English fluently. They sounded smart, confident, and powerful. I felt invisible next to them. One night, I cried alone in my room. I asked myself why English was so hard for me. Was I stupid? Was I slow? Or was I just scared? That night, I made a small decision. I decided that I would stop hating English. I would stop running away from it. Even if I failed, I would try. I started very small. I did not join any fancy course. I did not buy expensive books. I only made one promise to myself: English would become part of my daily life. Every morning, I listened to simple English videos. At first, I understood almost nothing. But I listened anyway. I did not pause. I did not translate every word. I just listened to the sound of the language. Slowly, familiar words started appearing again and again. I began reading short stories written for beginners. I read them loudly, even when I was alone. My pronunciation was bad. I knew it. But I continued. Sometimes, I laughed at myself. Sometimes, I felt proud that I did not stop. The hardest part was speaking. So I started talking to myself. In front of the mirror, I introduced myself in English. I described my day. I shared my feelings. At first, it felt strange and embarrassing. But after some time, it felt natural. The mirror did not judge me. One day, I gathered enough courage to speak in class. My sentence was simple. My grammar was not perfect. But I spoke. My voice was not shaking this time. The teacher smiled and nodded. That small moment gave me hope. There were still bad days. Days when I could not understand lectures. Days when people corrected me again and again. Days when I felt tired of trying. But now, I had something I did not have before. I had patience. I realized that learning English was not about perfection. It was about communication. It was about expressing ideas, not showing off vocabulary. I stopped being afraid of mistakes. Every mistake became a lesson instead of a failure. Slowly, people around me noticed a change. I started participating in discussions. I asked questions. My confidence grew, not because my English was perfect, but because I was no longer silent. I also discovered that English opened doors. I could watch international videos. I could read global news. I could understand different cultures. English was no longer a wall. It was becoming a bridge. One of the most emotional moments came when I gave a short presentation in English. My hands were still cold, but my heart was calm. I spoke clearly. I looked at the audience. When I finished, there was applause. Not loud, but real. I smiled, and for the first time, I felt proud of myself. English did not change who I was. It revealed who I could be. It taught me discipline, consistency, and self-belief. I learned that confidence is built slowly, word by word, sentence by sentence. Today, I still make mistakes. I still learn new words every day. But I am not afraid anymore. English is now my companion, not my enemy. If you are struggling like I once did, remember this. You are not weak. You are not slow. You are just learning. And learning takes time. Speak even when your voice shakes. Read even when you do not understand everything. Listen even when it feels difficult. One day, you will look back and realize that the struggle was worth it. Because the language that once silenced you will one day help you find your voice. As time passed, English slowly became a normal part of my life. It was no longer something that scared me every moment. I still remembered the days when even a single sentence felt heavy, but now I could speak without stopping every second. I realized that progress does not come suddenly. It comes quietly, like sunlight entering a dark room little by little. There were moments when I felt proud, but there were also moments when I felt tired. Learning a language is not a straight road. Some days, I felt fluent and confident. Other days, I felt lost again. But this time, I did not quit. I understood that bad days do not erase progress. I started writing small paragraphs in English every night. I wrote about my day, my thoughts, my fears, and my dreams. At first, my sentences were short and simple. Slowly, they became longer and clearer. Writing helped me organize my thoughts. It gave me time to think before expressing myself. One day, a classmate asked me for help with an English assignment. I was surprised. Me, helping someone in English. That moment made me realize how far I had come. I was no longer the silent student in the back row. I was becoming someone who could contribute. I also began to understand English movies without subtitles. Not every word, but enough to enjoy the story. Songs started making sense. Interviews felt less confusing. The language that once felt foreign was becoming familiar. But confidence is fragile. One negative comment can break it easily. During a group discussion, someone laughed at my accent. For a second, I felt that old fear return. My chest felt tight. I wanted to stop speaking. But then I remembered my journey. I remembered how hard I worked. I continued speaking. My accent was part of my story, not my weakness. That day, I learned something important. Fluency is not about sounding perfect. It is about being understood. It is about courage. Many people speak perfect English but stay silent because they are afraid of judgment. I chose not to be one of them anymore. Outside of college, English helped me explore new opportunities. I joined online communities. I read articles from different countries. I watched motivational talks. Every new word felt like a small victory. Sometimes, I met people who were just starting their English journey. I saw fear in their eyes, the same fear I once had. I told them my story. I told them that it is okay to be slow. It is okay to be confused. What matters is consistency. I realized that English was teaching me more than language skills. It was teaching me patience. It was teaching me how to face discomfort. It was teaching me self-respect. There was a time when I thought English was only for intelligent people. Now I knew the truth. English is for those who do not give up. One evening, I stood in front of the mirror again. This time, I spoke confidently. I talked about my goals. I talked about my future. I talked about how far I had come. The girl in the mirror was no longer afraid. I started dreaming bigger dreams. I imagined studying abroad. I imagined speaking to people from different cultures. I imagined standing on a stage and speaking freely. English made these dreams feel possible. But the journey was still not over. Learning never truly ends. There were advanced words I did not know. There were accents I struggled to understand. There were moments when I felt insecure again. But now, I knew how to handle those moments. I reminded myself that growth comes from discomfort. I also learned to enjoy the process. Instead of rushing, I focused on improvement. I celebrated small wins. A new word learned. A conversation completed. A paragraph written without hesitation. English became a habit. Just like brushing my teeth or drinking water. I did not force it anymore. It flowed naturally. Years ago, I was afraid to introduce myself. Now, I could share my story confidently. I could express my opinions. I could defend my ideas. I could connect with people. The biggest change was inside me. English gave me a voice, but confidence gave me power. I understood that language does not define intelligence. Effort does. To anyone reading this, struggling with English or any other language, I want to say this. Your fear is normal. Your mistakes are normal. Your slow progress is normal. Do not compare your beginning with someone else's middle. Speak even if your grammar is not perfect. Listen even if you do not understand everything. Read even if it feels boring at first. One day, you will surprise yourself. One day, you will realize that the language you feared is now part of you. And when that day comes, you will smile and remember how it all started. With silence, with fear, with courage, and a decision to never give up.